There's a lot of recipes out there that claim to be the best gluten-free cinnamon rolls, but I also feel like when you put a lot of butter and sugar and things, you have a tendency to ignore other things like the texture. This recipe, I wanted a legit Cinnabon style mall food court gluten-free cinnamon roll, and I cracked the code. It's still simple. It just uses two easy tricks. One is a roux, which do not be intimidated by that word. It's super quick and easy to come together. And the other one is just an ingredient I use in gluten-free bread, psyllium husk. I'll explain it all. Let's get started. For the roux, we have 2 tablespoons of the gluten-free flour, 3 tablespoons of milk, and then 3 tablespoons of water. And then we just whisk that to combine over medium heat. It does not take long at all, maybe a minute or two. It'll heat up and it'll become a very thick paste. And the reason why we do that is a roux is just pre-saturated flour, so it helps absorb the liquid in the rest of the ingredients. So when we add the milk and the egg and the butter and everything else, this kind of just gives a jump start on pre-saturating and absorbing all the liquid into the gluten-free flour, so we don't end up with like dense or gummy rolls. What you're looking for is it'll be very thick, and when you whisk it, you'll start to see how you see the bottom of the pan, so it's starting to hold shape. Then you are done. Before you begin the recipe, I recommend setting your oven to 250. Once it reaches 250, turn it off. The reason we do this is because I like a really warm environment to jumpstart rising the rolls. It just gives it an airier, softer texture. So do that first, and then we can start with our yeast. We have 3/4 cup of warm milk. I just heat it in the microwave for about a minute, and then I always use my instant read thermometer to check the temperature and just make sure you want it between 110 and 115 is a good temperature. And then a package of active dry yeast. I buy my yeast in bulk, and then I just use this exact measuring spoon to measure out a packet. And then a teaspoon of sugar, which just helps activate the yeast. So give that a quick stir and then set that aside for 5 minutes while we combine our dry ingredients. So for all of my baking recipes, I highly recommend using cup for cup gluten-free flour. It has cornstarch in the blend, so I feel like it just makes a lighter texture with baked goods, and it helps eliminate that like gritty, ricey texture that sometimes you get. So you need a 2 1/4 cup, which is 327 grams. But today we're gonna do something a little different. Cup for Cup recently changed their formula. They removed the milk powder, which makes it dairy-free, but I also feel like it takes away some of the moisture from recipes. For some of my recipes, I still leave it as is, especially when recipes have a lot of sugar in it. It adds a lot of moisture, so I don't do this. Cinnamon rolls only have 1/3 cup of sugar in it. So what I'm gonna do for a little trick is I'm going to remove 2 tablespoons of flour. And just as a general rule, I would do a tablespoon of flour per cup. So I'm gonna take out those 2 tablespoons of flour, and I'm going to replace it with a gluten-free milk powder. Now this isn't completely necessary, but I do feel like it makes a bit of a difference with the moisture in it. So if you have it on hand, I recommend doing this. And then the other ingredient to help shaping and make the dough really malleable is psyllium husk powder. I will link to the brand that I recommend, because if you use a darker psyllium husk powder, it will turn your baked goods like a purple color, which doesn't affect it, but just a little unsettling. So I use Terrasol brand, and you need 1 1/2 tablespoons. And then 1/3 cup of granulated sugar, 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder, and then 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And that's our dry ingredients. For the liquid ingredients, you use 1 room temp egg, 4 tablespoons of melted and cooled butter, your yeast mixture, which is now nice and foamy. That's when you know it's ready. And then the roux that we made that has been set aside and cooled. And I cannot tell you how many times I have made this recipe and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to add the roux. And then I have to go back and mix it again. So I recommend setting it next to your bowl so you don't forget it. Okay, we're gonna mix this to combine, and once it's all together, then set your mixer on medium-low speed and just let it rock for 5 minutes. You mix it for a long time. You don't have to worry about it getting tough because there's no gluten, nothing's gonna get tough. It helps saturate all those gluten-free starches. It gets a head start for the butter to coat the gluten-free flour and makes a nice, tender texture. Different gluten-free flours are gonna have a different consistency, but I wanna show you what the dough should look like. So it should be pretty stiff, but still sticky. It's not like a dough that you could probably just pick up and knead. If it is thicker than this, I would suggest adding a tablespoon or 2 of warmed milk or adding more gluten-free flour until you get this consistency. We're gonna set the dough aside just for a minute while we make our filling. So this is kind of weird. You don't need softened butter. You don't need melted butter. You need slightly melted butter. I tried this so many ways. I tried melting the butter. I felt like the filling just ran out. I tried softened butter. I didn't feel like it got gooey enough, so we went for the in between. So you need 4 tablespoons of slightly melted butter for the filling and a 1/2 cup of packed light brown sugar, and then a tablespoon of cinnamon, and then just combine that together. Here's where things get a little nutty. When I'm doing shaped recipes, I don't like to add so much flour that the dough is easy to shape, because then while it's easy to shape, you're gonna have some dry cinnamon rolls. That's not what we want. So keep your dough a little bit stickier, and then I have some workarounds. So get a silicone baking mat, or if you don't have that, just use parchment paper. You're going to spray it just to grease it, and so it doesn't stick. Notice I'm not adding more gluten-free flour because I don't want to incorporate more flour and dry it out. And then just scrape your dough onto the mat. Gonna spray our hands so the dough doesn't stick to it. And then we just shape this dough into a very exact 10 by 18. This is the reason why I like the silicone baking mat too, because it has the measurements on it. So to do this, you could use a rolling pin as well, but I just use my hands and flatten it out into a 10 by 18 rectangle. Once we have our rectangle, then we're just going to dollop that filling on and spread it all around. Now's the fun part. We get a roll. Start with the edge farthest away from you, and then just fold it all up and start rolling. This is so satisfying. Okay, don't go all the way. Stop when you have about 2 inches of dough flat on in front of you. And then for that dough, you're gonna bring it up and meet the roll. Just pinch that seam together. And then I'm gonna take this and roll it so the seam is down. And the last part is I'm gonna check my measurement again to make sure it's 18 inches. Because as you're rolling it, sometimes it has a tendency to stretch out. And the reason is because we want 9 even rolls. So I'm gonna do 2-inch rolls. So I just wanna make sure the calculus works out. Before you start slicing, I recommend just scoring it lightly so you make sure you have 9 equal pieces. So I'm just gonna go through in 2-inch sections and score it so I know where I'm gonna make my slices. And then I'm gonna finish slicing it. When you slice, I recommend using a serrated knife with the little ridges on it, and then just do a gentle sawing motion so you don't squish down your cinnamon rolls. For your baking pan, make sure you grease it first. You could do non-stick cooking spray or just use more butter, because we're eating cinnamon rolls. Who cares if there's more butter in it? I use an 8x8 baking pan, but I've also baked these in a pie plate too, works. And so if you're doing an 8x8, just do 3 rolls of 3 and just stack them in there. All right, remember Cinnabon, cinnamon rolls. We're channeling that. So to do that, we take a 1/4 of a cup of heavy cream. Remember, we're not worrying about calories here. And pour that over the top. You want your heavy cream to be room temp. So if it's coming straight from the fridge, I recommend just warming it up for a few seconds before pouring it over, because you don't want it to stop the rising. We're gonna set aside the rolls to rise, so we don't want that to stop that process. and then just pour it over the top. So all that seeps down into the rolls and makes them nice and gooey. Now we're ready to let it rise. So I'm gonna cover this with a lint-free towel, or you can just do grease plastic wrap as well. Put it in your oven that, remember a while back, we preheated it to 250 and then turn it off. We're gonna heat that for 10 minutes in there, then take it out and let it rise at room temp for 20 minutes while your oven preheats to 350. And then once that's done, then we'll bake them for between 30 and 35 minutes. While the rolls are baking, you'll want to get your frosting ready, because when they come out of the oven, you wanna put your frosting on the warm rolls. So I have two options for frosting: a cream cheese frosting and a powdered sugar frosting. I include both in the recipe link. Today we're gonna do the cream cheese frosting, which is 1.25 cups of powdered sugar, 3 tablespoons of softened butter, 5 tablespoons of softened cream cheese, and then 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. And then just mix all that together with a hand mixer until it's nice and creamy and smooth. Oh, here comes the yummy part, the frosting. So you want your rolls to still be warm. You could take them out of the oven and let them sit for about 10 minutes before frosting them. And what I recommend is get a big old healthy scoop of frosting, plop it on top, and go through and do all the rolls that way. And then once all the frosting is divided, don't question the amount of frosting, because remember, we're not thinking anything else except for good gooey cinnamon rolls. It will seep down into all these crevices too. And then once it's all divided up, just take a small spatula and spread it on. And that is the moment you dig in. The question I get asked the most about this recipe is if you can make them ahead of time, like if you can freeze the dough and then bake them the morning you're gonna serve them. So I tested this and I wasn't really happy with the results. I froze the dough, I let it sit at room temp, I let it rise. I just did not feel like they got as soft and fluffy as baking them from fresh. What I recommend doing is, if you need to make ahead, I would bake them completely, freeze them, don't frost them yet. When you're ready to serve, just cover it with foil and put it in a warm oven about 330 for about 15 minutes until they're warmed up. And then spread the frosting on when the rolls are warm and serve them. They are just as good as fresh baked. That is the best way to do the make ahead method. Make sure you visit my website, which I'll link to below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.